What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is iRate Reviews, the weekly review show where I go over a comic book, its art, its story, give you my impressions, and whether it's something you should go back to the comic book shop for or not. What we're going to be talking about is Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows #1. So this is Volume 2. This is a continuation of the Secret Wars storyline, and ultimately, as a Spider-Man fan, this is a book that I have been yearning for. This is something that all Spider-Man fans have been yearning for, because this symbolizes a Peter Parker that is older, he's more mature, he's married, MJ and him are together, there's no such thing as one more day. This is a completely different universe where we can essentially see Peter Parker as an adult. He's grown, he has got character development, and that's one of the most important things about this. So, let's just jump right into the story. Renew Your Vows opens up on a very standard scenario where essentially Peter Parker is fighting the Scorpion. And the Scorpion, being a little bit of a lunkhead, a little bit of an insane kind of person, he handily takes care of him within the first page and a half. Wasn't really that big a deal. He got clocked a little bit, but ultimately pulled it out from underneath him, webbed him up, and left him for the police. And the thing that he hears over the microphone, these earpieces that he's evidently developed for him and Mary Jane, is a code green. And what does a code green mean? Well, as the webhead crawls through the window, we get to know that the daughter has, been read her story, she's had her bath, she's definitely been in bed for at least an hour, and Code Green is definitely nookie time for Spider-Man and MJ. Unfortunately, this is short-lived because, of course, Annie Parker, being the rambunctious little child that she is, and a daughter of Peter Parker, she finds her way into her dad's web shooters and strings herself up all over the room, and that just feels like something that would happen to a child. So while this is something that's rather, inconvenient for their couple's time, I'd say, it definitely shows some very good understanding, because Peter Parker comes in directly as the form of a father and shows how it's just like, you're a gifted little kid. I totally understand that. We want you to be a little bit more patient. We want to show you a little bit more restraint, those kind of things. You can't use your spider powers at school and stuff, but we want to make sure that you're safe. And then she's like, well, at least you're not mad. It's just like, well, I wouldn't say that, so they're definitely in unison in those things. We then go to the next morning where essentially Peter's making breakfast and Mary Jane's about to run out without any kind of lunch. He's like, I gotta make you a sandwich, but he's flipping pancakes, and then all of a sudden you get the immediate designation that Annie has powers on the level of Peter Parker. Her spider powers are definitely as capable as her father's because of the genetics they passed down to her as a child, as she saves the flapjack before it falls on the floor. And it's a very subtle but easy way to develop the character. You give the impression that she's like, okay, she is just as capable as Spider-Man, but she probably lacks training, she lacks experience. And these are the kind of things that she's going to be gaining as the series goes on. As we move forward, we find out that Peter Parker is still a photographer for the Daily Bugle. He takes pictures of Spider-Man, and he's developed himself a brand new web drone, too, so that way he doesn't take butt shots anymore, which is a cool use of his technology, but a severe underutilization of your potential, Peter. You could be so much more than this. That being said, it's good to see Peter in a very familiar environment, so that way we at least have a starting point. We have a place where he can progress from, and that's everything that a character needs. This is going to be an interesting situation so that Gerry Conway can essentially push Spider-Man in whatever direction he really needs to in order to develop the character in a way that he sees fit. And one of the funny things is that when there's a situation around where Regent's laboratories, his home base was, that finds there's a dinosaur there for some odd reason, but it's interesting because it's just like Gerry Conway pokes a little bit of fun at Dan Slott's current Spider-Man because he's like, yeah, no, it's great. I'm a photographer. I get to get paid a little bit of money. He haggles me on my price, but I get to spend time with my kids and I get to be married. I was like, I've got all kinds of free time because I'm fun. I'm not working in a lab, so I get to have fun. And what's Spider-Man if not fun? The fun gets cut off a little bit as he sees the dinosaur, but it's definitely implied that it's just like, hey, this could be a little bit better vehicle for a lighthearted, fun Spider-Man, which a lot of people really seem to want, especially with this whole connection with MJ and Annie. When it comes to the story, my only real complaints are that it seems a little bit short. This situation feels like it could have developed just a touch more, that they're trying to shoehorn a little bit more into it than, it really needed at this point in time. We could have done with one confrontation, maybe stretch out the Scorpion one a little bit, maybe develop a little bit more of the character with the kids before we dive into the next situation, because the closing scene is that the Mole Man has attacked with his moloids and Annie Parker is being kidnapped. And it's just like, it seems ridiculous and extremely quickly paced because, first off, how did Annie get her costume on? Where did she come from? Why is she around Regent's laboratory? Where the hell was MJ coming from? there's so many questions that get brought up by that. I mean, it's good to see, moving forward that they've got a really good direction for it, and I really enjoyed everything else about it. It's just one of those things where it's like, okay, cool. I mean, I could have used a little bit more. I needed my fix. I needed my fix of more Spider-Man. The nice thing is that the secondary stories did provide that. There was the really cool, like, simply drawn, simply written, but like Daddy's Time with his daughter, where Spider-Man just takes Annie around, and the scene with Sandman is just super funny. It's just like, hey, I gotta run some errands, take care of the kid, and he builds her a sandcastle because she's like, build a castle, and he does it. He's like, oh well, you could have done a little bit better on the hair before he webs him up and leaves him for the cops. I thought that was just choice material to go into the book. As far as the art's concerned, Ryan Stegman is a knockout. I really enjoyed his Superior Spider-Man work, and ultimately I feel like this is a really good development of it. I can't wait to see, as things go and he gets kind of into his stride regarding Spider-Man, I can't wait to see how the characters refine and the style gets a little bit more consistent, because right now it feels like there's just a little bit of touch and go in some panels, but ultimately it's definitely head and shoulders above what a lot of other books are putting out on the market. I really can't complain about the art at all. And I have to be completely honest, because as a Spider-Man fan, I am inherently biased to love this book. Like put on candles, put on some Barry White, and love this book. This is my book. This is made for me. So I'm going to need a little bit of a reaction on this one from you guys, so that way I can see like whether I'm drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit too hard, or if I'm kind of on the right track. So those are my thoughts on Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows #1, but I want to know what you guys thought too, so hit me up in the comments down below so we can have that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe right there to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.